Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, today we're going to dive into how you as a federal employee can get an estimate for your pension within just a couple minutes in a very simple way without it being overwhelming. We're going to dive right into this. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. So good to have you. My name is Dallin Hawes. I'm a financial planner who serves federal employees every day to help you guys maximize your retirements. And I absolutely love it. So let's dive right in. In a nutshell, how you calculate your pension as a federal employee is actually quite simple. Now, when you break down some of the pieces, it can get complicated, but we're going to keep it simple here today so that just in a couple minutes, you can know what your pension is going to be from all the time that you spent working for the federal government. So let's dive in. So your pension is simply a combination of three different things, okay? It is first, your height three. Your height three, we're going to talk about what all these things are. It is your years of service. Okay, and your multiplier, okay? So, height 3 multiplied by your years of service multiplied by your multiplier. So, let's start first with your height 3. Your height 3 is your average salary during the 36 months you got paid the most. Basically, the 3-year period in which your average annual salary was the most, that's what your height 3 is, okay? So, for example, let's say you got paid $95,000 one year, you got paid $100,000 the next, and then 105, okay? In this example, what's the average of all three of these? It is 100. So if these 3 years were the highest 3 years of your career, your height 3 would be $100,000. Now, obviously, this is a simple example, but honestly, if you're not close to retirement, you don't have to be exact. You're not going to be exact. You don't know what pay raises and things you're going to get between now and retirement. If you're, let's say, 5+ years out, when calculating this, just use your current salary as an estimate for your height 3. That's going to be close enough to get you an idea of what your pension is, okay? If you're within a couple years of retirement, then probably just use your current salary. The only time I wouldn't use your current salary is if you're within probably 18 months of retirement. By then, you'll have probably a pretty good idea of what this will actually be. Otherwise, just use your current salary. It's going to be a good place to start, okay? Next, years of service. So your years of service include, of course, all just your years as a federal employee that you paid into the system. It can also include military time if you bought those years back. Okay, if you want a whole video on buying back military time, I've got whole videos on that, so check that out if you want to check it out. Also, unused sick leave can add into your years of service as well. Again, I've got whole videos on that, so check it out. But basically, it's all your normal service, add in any military time that you bought back, as well as any unused sick leave at retirement, will add to your years of service. So let's just do an example. Let's say you have everything added. Let's say you have 20 years, right? 20 years. Let's say in this example, okay? We'll use that later. Next, when it comes to your multiplier will depend on a couple of things. For the average federal employee, their multiplier is 1%, okay? And we're going to talk about what that actually does, but we'll get there, okay? If you're a traditional FERS employee and you retire before age 62, your multiplier is going to be 1%, okay? If you're a traditional FERS. If you're special provisions, let's say a firefighter, air traffic controller, law enforcement, your multiplier is going to be a little different. We'll talk about that, okay? But long story short, your multiplier for an average person is 1%. Now, for a traditional FERS employee, a normal federal employee, if you retire age 62 or later, okay, so age 62, and you have at least 20 years of service, your multiplier actually changes to 1.1%. Your pension gets a 10% bonus, okay? So as a traditional FERS, your multiplier is going to be either 1%, or if you retire at 62 with at least 20 years of service, it's going to be 1.1%, okay? Now, this is, again, the multipliers for traditional federal employees. Traditional, okay? When I say traditional, I mean not special provision. If you're special provision, generally speaking, your multiplier is 1.7%. It's a bigger multiplier. You get more bang for your buck as a special provision, right? It's 1.7% for the first 20 years, and then 1% after that, okay? So again, if you're special provisions, you get 1.7 for the first 20 and then 1% for all the years after that. If you're traditional, it's 1% or 1.1, depending on when you retire, okay? So long story short, let's do some math. Let's do a simple scenario. Let's say your height 3 is 100,000, and let's say you have 20 years of service, and let's say your multiplier is 1%. Well, what we have to do is just multiply all those things together. So 100 grand multiplied by 20 multiplied by 1% equals $20,000. Okay, again, 100 grand multiplied by 20, multiplied by 1%, we get $20,000. So what does that mean? That means this person would get about 20 grand a year for the rest of their life from their time working for the government. Now, you may also have a TSP and Social Security, some other income sources, but just from your FERS pension, that is what your pension would be, okay? 20 grand. Now, it is paid out on a monthly basis, so it's 20 grand a year, but you take 20 grand divided by 12 to get what it'll be on a monthly basis, okay? And again, this is the gross number, meaning just like your gross salary may be 100,000, your net salary is often a lot less because a lot of things have to come out of this. For example, if you want to keep your health insurance or other insurances, or you want a survivor benefit for your spouse, or taxes, all those things have to come out of this first. So let's say after all those, you may be left with, let's say, $14,000 a year. Again, I'm just making these numbers up. We don't know exactly what deductions you're going to have, but that's the idea, is you have a gross number and then it comes down to a net number over time. So long story short, that is a really simple way to estimate your pension. And again, if you retire at 62 with at least 20 years, your multiplier is 1.1. So you'd multiply 100K by 20 years by 1.1 instead of the 1, right? In that case, it would be 22,000, right? In this example, with 100K as your high 3 and 20 years, okay? If your special provisions, right, what you would do is 100K multiplied by 20 years multiplied by 1.7, okay? And if you have any additional years above 20, then you take that number plus you go 100K multiplied by what additional years you have above 20 multiplied by 1%, and you add everything together, okay? That, again, I want to keep this video simple. I've got whole other videos just for special provisions or just for traditional FERS if you want to dial into some more examples. But this video is just meant to be just run you through briefly in a simple way to get an estimate for what your pension's going to be. If you have a lot of time between now and retirement, it's a good idea just to know roughly what you're working for, right? What's the dollar amount that you're going to get? Is it worth it for you? All of those questions, it's important to know what your pension roughly is going to be. So I hope that's helpful. Again, if you have any questions or want more help, there's a bunch of helpful things in the description of the video, so check that out. Good luck with everything and have a great rest of your day.